They never believed I could change our future, but how did I end up becoming the one who changed everyone's life? I used to be the man whose own father wouldn't look him in the eye, the village idiot of Oakhaven who spent his rent money on copper wire and old car batteries. Now, every time a light flickers on in this valley or a child goes to school in a heated building, they're using the heartbeat of the machine I built while they were busy laughing at me. My name is Leo, and at 32, I was a ghost in my own hometown. While my sister Elena, 28 and sharp as a razor, was winning landmark cases in the city, I was hauling scrap metal into a garage that smelled like ozone and failure. My father, Marcus, was 65 and carried the weight of 40 years at the Oakhaven mill in his hunched shoulders. To him, work was something you did with a shovel or a lever. My notebooks filled with thermal equations were just expensive scratch paper. The air in Oakhaven was thick with a specific kind of rot back then, the rot of a town that had lost its purpose. When the mill closed, the town didn't just lose its paycheck, it lost its pride. I saw men half my father's age sitting on their porches at noon, staring at their boots because they didn't know who they were without a time clock to punch. I was already used to being useless, so I didn't feel the shock they did. Instead, I felt a strange, burning clarity. I knew about the vents. Beneath our feet, the earth was screaming with untapped thermal energy, shallow pockets of heat that the big energy conglomerates called unstable and low yield. They wanted deep, high-pressure steam for massive profits. I just wanted enough to keep the bakery ovens warm and the streetlights humming. But try explaining distributed geothermal thermodynamics to a man who just lost his pension. Marcus didn't want a scientist, he wanted a son he could be proud of at the local diner. Have you ever been in a room where your presence felt like an apology? Have you ever felt like your mere existence was a disappointment to the people you loved most? There was one person who didn't look through me, and that was Sarah. She was 30, ran the town's last standing bakery, and had flour permanently etched into the lines of her palms. She would give me the day-old bread for free, not out of charity, but because she saw the way I looked at my blueprints, the same way she looked at a rising loaf of sourdough. But as the town's privately owned power grid began to fail and the prices tripled, I saw her light fading. She started selling her equipment just to keep the lights on for the morning shift. Then there was Julian. He was 35, a corporate liquidator sent from the city to re-evaluate our town's assets. In plain English, he was there to decide which buildings to board up and which to sell for parts. He represented the real world, the world of cold math and zero-sum games. He used to stand at the edge of my driveway, leaning against his expensive rental car, and tell me that Oakhaven was a carcass and I was just a maggot dreaming of being a butterfly. He wasn't mean, he was just certain. And his certainty was more terrifying than any insult. I made a choice that nearly cost me my sanity. I decided to stop trying to convince them. I stopped talking. I stopped explaining. I locked the garage door and lived on Sarah's bread and the rainwater I caught in buckets. I sold everything I owned. My truck, my childhood coin collection, even the silver watch Marcus had given me for high school graduation. I needed a specific type of organic Rankine cycle turbine, and the only way to get it was to build it from the guts of 3 different industrial refrigerators and a scrap jet starter. The town gossip turned toxic. People said I was building a bomb. They said I had finally lost my mind and was going to take the whole block with me. Elena stopped calling. Marcus stopped bringing me sandwiches. The silence in that garage was so heavy I could feel it in my teeth. I was working 18 hours a day, calibrating sensors with fingers that were cracked and bleeding from the cold. What would you do in that situation? If everyone you loved turned their back on you because they thought you were delusional, would you have the strength to keep your hand on the wrench? The big freeze of 2025 wasn't just a storm, it was an execution. The main transmission line from the city snapped like a dry twig under the weight of the ice. Oakhaven went black in a matter of seconds. It was 10 below zero, and the town's backup generators were failing because the fuel lines were gelled up. I knew this was the window. If I didn't move now, the elderly residents in the nursing home wouldn't survive the night. I dragged my machine, a hulking, ugly mass of welded steel and copper coils I called the Heart, out onto a flatbed trailer. I hauled it through 3 feet of snow to the central substation. I saw Julian there, huddled in his designer coat, trying to organize an evacuation that was never going to happen in that weather. I saw Marcus, his face gray with cold, helping people into the community center. Nobody asked me what I was doing. They were too tired to mock me anymore. I spent 2 hours in the dark, my flashlight held between my teeth, bypass wiring my turbine into the town's ancient transformer. My hands were so numb I had to use my pliers to feel the wire. I felt the heat coming from the ground, a faint, sulfurous breath from the vent I had tapped. I engaged the starter. The sound was a low, guttural roar that felt like it came from the center of the universe. The trailer buckled under the vibration. For a long, agonizing minute, nothing happened. I felt the familiar sting of failure rising in my throat. I looked at Marcus, who was watching me from across the square, and for the first time in years, he didn't look disappointed. He looked hopeful, and that hope was more pressure than I could stand. Then, the ground hummed. A single street lamp in the center of the square flickered, then roared into a brilliant, steady white glow. Then the bakery's neon sign, open, buzzed to life. Then, one by one, the windows of the houses on Main Street began to glow. It wasn't the flickering, weak power of the old grid, it was a deep, pulsing energy that felt alive. The heart was beating, and it was pumping life back into the valley. The morning after the storm, the world was different. I didn't wake up to a thank you. I woke up to the sound of Julian's car door closing. He wasn't leaving, he was coming to ask for the specifications. He realized that I hadn't just saved the town for a night, I had made the real world obsolete. Oakhaven now had the cheapest, cleanest, and most stable power in the country. Within a year, the mill didn't reopen as a lumber yard, it reopened as a manufacturing plant for the HART units. We started exporting power to the neighboring counties. Caleb, my old friend who had lost his business, became the head of our installation crew. Elena moved back to handle the legal complexities of our new energy cooperative. We didn't just survive, we became the wealthiest town in the state. But the real change was in Marcus. He didn't become a scientist, and I didn't become a mill worker. But every evening, we sit on the porch and watch the lights of the valley. He doesn't look at his boots anymore. He looks at me, and I see the reflection of a man who finally understands that a son's hobby can be a father's salvation. I learned that the people who want to change the world are usually the ones the world tries to break first. Sacrifice isn't just about what you give up, it's about what you're willing to endure while everyone else is telling you to sit down. I ended up becoming the one who changed everyone's life because I was the only one who realized that the power we were looking for wasn't in the city or the corporations, it was right beneath our feet, waiting for someone to listen. Do you think I was selfish for ignoring my family to chase this dream, or was it the only way to save them? If this story made you look at your own crazy ideas a little differently, please like this video and share it with someone who feels like a lost cause. Don't forget to subscribe to join our community of dreamers and doers. Your support is the energy that keeps us going.